This is AUGforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is REPAY. REPAY offers omni-channel integrated payment solutions for Acumatica users. Whether you are making B2B payments or collecting them, REPAY is your full-service payments provider. Power up your payments to empower your business and accelerate the AP and AR payment flow through one seamless integration. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Velixo. Velixo is an award-winning provider of Excel-based reporting solutions for Acumatica. With Velixo, you can build financial, project, and other business reports in Excel with live Acumatica data in just a few minutes and get the answers you need. If you know Excel, you can do it. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. Guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Wednesday, April 6th, 2022, and this is episode number 80, Robert Waite, Acumatica Developer of the Year. Robert, thanks for coming on. This is another case of I've seen you online, but first time meeting you. Looking forward to our conversation. Maybe we could start off. I always like getting the brief origin story of all of our guests. Maybe you could tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, and what your first job out of school looked like.
So my background, I've been working with ERP Systems for 19 years. I attended the University of British Columbia. I was in the engineering program. To be honest, programming was just not what I wanted to do at that time. I actually ended up pursuing a career in commercial aviation. So I didn't finish up my degree at UBC, and then I pursued aviation. So I got to the point of getting my private license and had acquired an airplane to rack up the hours and whatnot. But I just ended up being between a rock and a hard spot and a whole mountain of debt from all of the flight training and whatnot. And I got my start in ERP by working with this green screen application called PIC. So it's kind of like this mainframe type system, very clunky character-based system. And I was working in the inventory department, and I started writing these little VB scripts on the relative to this program. My earliest experience with programming was back in like the 3rd and 4th grade. I was enamored by the subject of programming and computers in general, and you'd always find me within like the computer room tinkering with code. It was an Apple IIe and the basic programming language, and I'd do like everything from ASCII art and copy programs from books, and I loved it. I think that might be a reason why it didn't appeal to me in my academic career, because I've already been there, done that sort of thing. Like my heart was in the sciences. I was gung ho about like, I'm just going to pursue a career in aviation, and that's what I'm going to do. Programming was just the last thing on my mind academically. And then it just came down to
you said University of British Columbia. Does that mean you grew up in Canada?
I did spend my childhood in British Columbia. So I was born up there. My mom is a U.S. citizen. We moved to New Jersey in my adolescence, and I kind of just took the opportunity to use my Canadian citizenship to go to school up there, because I pretty much got through my classes at the same cost as going to like a community college here in the States. So
nice.
Yeah, so it was good. I don't regret not finishing. There's a lot of programmers out there, famous programmers that just didn't, because they just were able to make far more money just by pursuing programming and just getting into it. So I just found myself between a rock and a hard spot working in this inventory department, and the system was just clunky, and I just wrote these automation things and got barcodes integrated with our system, digital imagery to help you identify parts and whatnot. And really, that's what kind of really kicked off my ERP career. So I worked.
So when you got into programming, it was directly with ERP. Like it wasn't building a software application. It sounds like it was just right into ERP from the get-go.
Right into ERP right from the get-go. So I was just like, you know what, these systems, I want to make a career out of this now. I started buying books on programming, C#, and just cover to cover went through all of the material and just taught myself how to do stuff. And ever since then, I've more or less liked to stake the claim that I've built a career out of being disappointed with ERP systems. Generally, they're over-engineered beasts. I can't say that about Acumatica, and I won't say that about Acumatica, because they gave me an MVP status. They've given me an award. I can't do that. I feel it behooves me to evangelize Acumatica. It's worthy of being evangelized, because I think the success that Acumatica has is based on its dedication to enabling developers to do what they do, to make the product go above and beyond what it's capable of doing out of the box. I really believe that's behind the success that Acumatica has. And it's in their MVP program and Mark Frank's pulling together the community so that we're not isolated, and we have resources to reach out to for help. And that's what makes Acumatica successful, is their dedication to building the developer community, because it's developers that make ERPs do what they do. Sure, they're complex beasts. It'll always be that way. Every single ERP out there is the same way. But Acumatica just really stands out in terms of the platform itself and the ability to get in there and make it do exactly what you need it to do.
I'm curious on your background before we get back into Acumatica a little more. When you started off with the PIC ERP application, that was in-house role?
That was an in-house role. So I was working for a company. I was got into a inventory management position, and there was just shortcomings with the software. And I just loved programming as a kid, and just saw this as an opportunity to really make something, make a career out of it. So shortly after.
Then I see after that you go to another company, looks like in-house, but then by 2011 you're at SWK in analyst. Like I would assume that's more of a consulting role.
It was a development consulting role. So at SWK I specialized in doing vertical applications to Sage 100 predominantly. I did also get some experience with Sage 500, X3, Sage. Did I mention Sage 500? I think I did. But yeah, so there was a handful of stuff. I did some stuff with the Accelos integration to Sage 500, and I really got into mainstream development consulting. Like, there's a difference between just general consulting and development consulting, but I had a whole array of different projects and whatnot that I had in various different types of industries from there. So
500 makes me perk up because that was the product I was involved with mostly before Acumatica.
yeah,
Not many of us out there.
I love T-SQL. It's a really fun language. I find that it's very valuable. I loved Sage 500.
So did I love that all the logic was in SQL. I didn't have to get out develop.
Exactly.
I draw the line at Visual Studio. I don't want to open that thing. It's too much of a beast.
Yeah.
But I could like just modify scripts, and that was great. I enjoy that.
Yeah, if they just redid the user interface and made it .NET, I think you'd be golden. I mean, being that all of the business logic is T-SQL based, you could probably easily get it into the cloud as well. But yeah, it's not that way. And I mean, VB6, that's a pretty ancient language at this point.
Well, I will say I did always struggle with upgrades because I worked in-house at a company. We were modifying the stored procedures and triggers and stuff all the time. But when we had to upgrade, that was a very painful process. And I do like Acumatica much better in that you can isolate your logic, and if you do it right, you just publish it again after the upgrade. So much easier than the Sage 500 way of doing it.
Yeah, I hear you there. But yeah, I mean, I think Sage Sage should look into redoing that interface and bringing that interface back up. But I don't know what's going on there. At this point in time, my focus is Acumatica 100%, and I hope to never look back.
So I see on your LinkedIn profile, SWK was June 2011 to August 2018. You were in-house at a couple places before that, which you mentioned. At what point is that, when you're at SWK, when you first got involved with Acumatica, or what? Describe to us that first involvement with Acumatica and what triggered it and what got you interested in it.
So my first involvement, I was a C# developer. So I had all of the C# prerequisites, and there was just a need for Acumatica work to be done. So I started training for Acumatica around 2015. I never got any actual projects in Acumatica at SWK, but I ended up getting an opportunity working as a contractor with ASI to work for APS, which is now acquired by REPAY, and hence the reason I'm on board REPAY at this point. So yeah, 2018, that's when I started to really get into actual Acumatica development, and not just the training material and copying and pasting code from the training materials into documents. But I did have Patrick Chan as a mentor back in 2015. So he's helped me get started, and yeah, the rest. So once I got that opportunity at working as a contractor for APS, that's when I started hitting mainstream development for Acumatica.
So you were involved with payments from the very beginning, and was it building that initial APS integration, or was it already there and you were just enhancing it?
So there was a previous product that was pulled together, and essentially we came in and we replaced it, and it is what it is. So we had two products at that time that were coming into fruition, which is the APS based payments product. This channels all of the Acumatica existing interfaces to facilitate credit card processing, and we write all the codes within those interfaces to make payments happen through our gateway. Our Click2Pay product is a slightly different way of engaging the same sort of payments, where we externalize the payments. We send invoice information and sales order information to our Click2Pay server, and it renders a clickable link that we send to the customer or business that needs to perform a payment. And that facilitates the payment through the server, and then we download that payment thereafter to indicate that Acumatica, so that Acumatica is aware of the payments thereafter. Starting around
since you brought up Click2Pay, can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
So I haven't actually used it. I mean, I heard it talked about. Since I've got a person here who knows the details, one of the things I've always wondered. All right, so I create an invoice in Acumatica, all right, and I assume I use the REPAY payment method if I want to trigger the capturing of the credit card. Is that how it would work?
So that's pretty much it. So
the one more piece that I'm wondering. So like I create the invoice, I release the invoice. What do you normally see? Do I have Acumatica send the notification to the customer and somehow it has the link in it, or is it the Click2Pay engine that sends the actual notification for payment?
Yeah, so with our product, we embed a report document as a starting point for delivering the actual invoice. And then there's a little link down at the bottom of the report. That's predominantly it. So we do fire that off via the notification services, and that can be configured so that you can make the report look however you need it. And essentially the customer gets that PDF copy. They click the link at the bottom. And the link also appears relative to an email that is initiated from Acumatica. So
it is Acumatica's notification engine that sends the email out with the PDF. Okay. You're just querying the REPAY API somehow to get you that link that you can drop onto the invoice.
Yep.
Okay.
So during the release process, we initialize the what's going to be paid relative to our Click2Pay server. The notification services transpire shortly after that as to deliver the link to whomever is going to pay for it. And then the payer can engage that link to securely enter in their card information. Everything is PCI compliance audited and thoroughly audited on a regular basis as to assert that this credit card payment information is secure and captured in a sanctioned manner.
Cool. Thanks. I like going on tangents. So thanks for the Click2Pay tangent. So you were going to go somewhere else before I went there.
So another product that we introduced mid 2001 is our accounts payable integration. So with that product, we essentially reverse the process.
2021, like just last year? Okay.
Just last year. So we have a product that facilitates you automatically paying your vendors for whatever services are needed. So a similar service, we send payment voucher information to our server, and then it's just there's not much that needs to be done other than clicking the approve button at the end of the day as to facilitate the actual payment. So we have a whole office that facilitates either through ACH, credit card payments, or sometimes we'll actually cut the check from our office and send it out the door. So that whole process is just completely abstracted. You just set up our software, and it will initiate and perform the actual payments automatically.
So you just launched that last year. Can I ask you some details on that?
Sure.
I've been interested in that. So I've seen Avid Exchange before years ago. And
Hmm.
I asked Darren Horrocks, who's
Horrocks, right. Yep.
vice president at REPAY, about this. But I think you probably know more details. So one thing I've wondered, I know with Avid Exchange, I've heard this complaint that Avid Exchange is completely motivated. I think they're even owned by American Express now, if I remember
Hmm.
correctly. They're completely motivated to get you onto digital payments. They do
Hmm.
not want to cut you a check, although I think you can drag them kicking and screaming to get a check cut. On the
Hmm.
REPAY side, do you know like how how's the model work? Like, is it okay if I just want you cutting the checks and sent out, or is there huge incentive to go get the vendors to buy into the digital network?
Generally, the ideal is to go digital because that's just going to be facilitate the whole process a lot more seamless than cutting a paper check. But there is a execution path that does render a printed check at the end of the day. But generally, that's a last resort.
And the digital path. So another thing I've wondered on the technical side, how you actually map. I've got an Acumatica vendor that's got my own company's random vendor ID for it, right? My
Hmm.
own internal thing, and it's got my own name for the vendor, which may be close to the name that other people have, but some people might have different names for the same vendor. The capitalization's different. They have ink after it instead of, some people don't have ink after it in their system.
Hmm.
How do you map that vendor information from an Acumatica system to your REPAY list of vendors that are in your electronic payment system?
So that gets pulled directly from the Acumatica system and gets uploaded along with the uh, document. So once the document gets the payment document gets released, that information gets pulled from Acumatica and then mapped out to our entities on that server.
But the mapping process, like, do I get a REPAY field on the vendor in Acumatica that like allows me to select from the REPAY list of vendors? Or how does that mapping happen? How does it know that vendor name, whatever it's called in my system, is this vendor in the REPAY system?
It just pulls it directly from the vendor record itself.
Interesting. Because you've got a list of vendors on the REPAY side that like are signed up for electronic payments, right?
That that
And
actually
like,
gets configured on the Acumatica side, and
ah,
Acumatica automatically relays the
okay.
configuration
That's what
information
I was
over
wondering.
to, yes, yeah.
So that
So
mapping, do you know where that mapping happens? Like, is it on the vendor screen? Do I pick how
yeah,
do I make that map?
you need not do anything. You just cut the check as long as the vendor is configured for our services. Whatever's configured relative to Acumatica, that's what gets sent up. There's no need to get in and do any degree of mapping.
But that
So it's all,
configuration, so that initial setup, that would happen on the vendor screen in
yes,
Acumatica, where I would do the mapping to say, okay, this vendor is actually this vendor in the REPAY system.
yeah. So
Got
you
it.
have
That's
the
what I was
ability
wondering.
to opt in or opt out specific vendors, and our
Got it.
Click2Pay service operates in the same way as well. So you could configure like a global setting and just like every vendor under the roof or every customer under the roof will participate, or you can get granular and say, hey, only these specific customers are or vendors are going to participate in either of these services.
Oh, so I actually, that's the area I was curious about. So that configuration does happen in Acumatica, and I
Mhm.
can decide on a vendor by vendor basis. I probably have some financial incentive with the way the contract is set up to convince my vendor to go the electronic route and map them into that electronic system. But if I
Mhm.
wanted to, I just simply, for that vendor, I would not configure them for electronic, and they would be able to get checks if that's what they wanted.
If that's what you want to do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that was the complaint I remember about Avid Exchange, that they would then take your vendors and start calling them and start trying to pressure them to move into electronic. And this was pre-COVID. I think a lot of people learned during COVID just how antiquated check payments are. So maybe
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
as
exactly.
common anymore. I agree. I
Mhm.
don't know why you would want them, but it's nice
Yeah,
that you still could, if you have that
yeah.
old
It's
school manufacturer or whatever that still has the wood paneling in their office and wants those physical checks, you still have that option.
that's precisely why it's there, is just specifically for that use case. Generally, you don't want to use antiquated systems such as paper checks. You want to go through the digital process. It's all so much more seamless and easy to do. But that's one of the beauties about using our product, is we completely abstract that away from you. You just configure your vendors as needed, and then we address and take care of the rest.
So what about bringing both accounts receivable payments that are coming in and accounts payable payments that are going out? Do those come back into Acumatica so that I can see all that information? I know when I received a payment, I sent them out the Click2Pay link. Eventually they click it, hopefully the next day,
Yeah.
and they make a payment. Do I see that come back into Acumatica? And then same on the AP side?
Pretty much. So relative to our Click2Pay process, we have a processing page on there that will download the payments that have transpired on our Click2Pay service. And then relative to accounts payable, we have a similar processing page that performs the approval process that is needed to finalize the process. And then that pulls back the information and status state dates for each of the distinct records.
That approval process sounds maybe that's similar to, like, there's some Acumatica processing screens for printing checks. Probably a similar process. I would select the bills that I want to pay, and then once I hand approve them, they go out to your payments network to either get checks cut
Yeah,
or hopefully electronically pay.
yeah. So the AP payments, they get sent out in a batch that we call a payment group, and essentially the final process that's going is you have a look at the documents that are in your payment group, and you just simply apply a process. So or the approval process, and that in turn initiates the specific process of getting those payments finalized and sent out to your vendors. And then Acumatica receives the update that the approval process has transpired, and you're good to go thereafter.
Cool. Thanks. I always like learning some more details about how these products work.
Mhm.
Another thing I'm wondering is you just launched that product, sounds like last year.
Mhm.
Um, that I'm sure had a lot of Acumatica development associated with it. For you
Mhm.
personally, like, are you primarily developing in Acumatica, or is it also in like the REPAY portal? Like, where does most of that, but when you're actually having to do these integrations, where does most of that work typically take place? Is it on the
It's
Acumatica
it,
side or your REPAY
it's
side?
all happening within an extension library to for the engagement between each of the services. For each of the services, we have a dedicated a library that specifically abstracts out um, all of the nitty gritty of how to engage each of these services, because we do ERP systems beyond Acumatica as well. We have a whole team that works on Sage 100, Sage 500. We got X3 integration. So a lot of this stuff, it really needs to be abstracted down into its own libraries. So we make it easier to facilitate working with these services through those. And then Acumatica directly engages those libraries to facilitate the process. We don't use integration services in any way. with the actual product. We do leverage integration services with our regression testing, so that we automate our processes just to test and facilitate the whole process automatically. And we have an assertion at the end of the day or at the end of the test that just makes sure that everything is copacetic. And that gives us early warning of issues that we might see in the field. So yeah, you can engage the services through direct REST engagement, but we frown on that. We try to do it all through our sanctioned libraries that pretty much just abstracts away all of the stuff that you need to do to get into the REST and all of that technical stuff.
When you say like your library, does that mean, at the end of the day, from my perspective, is it's a customization project that gets deployed in Acumatica?
Yeah, it's a customization project. So we have a dedicated extension library that facilitates all of the interaction with Acumatica and the library. And then we ship the libraries in addition to that extension library, and everything just happens under the hood. You need not be concerned about manually placing them. You just publish our package and you're good to go.
So you've built
with some minor configuration.
Yes, then like we talked on the vendor side, I mean, you've enabled additional functionality that might need to be configured, but so you got this integration on the AP side, on the AR side. What's like on the roadmap? Do you go deeper into Acumatica? Is it more like, what do you got working? What are you working on now?
I'm a bit leery on answering that question because I want to make sure that
REPAY
is okay with
no problem
doing that. I don't want to give away our roadmap items when I'm not privy to share that. So I'm going to pass on that question.
What about, let me put it this way, and if you can't answer this one either, no problem. What about like, any payments provider is going to support a variety of ERP applications, right? So like you already mentioned, Sage 100, Sage 500, Sage X3, Acumatica. For you personally, are you always constantly having to look through the lens of multiple, or are you focused on how things look in Acumatica?
I am focused on how things look in Acumatica. And I got a couple of resources that help me out. So I kind of give them direction as well. Yeah, my primary focus is making sure that the Acumatica pieces are working together and doing things. So we do have other members on our team that specifically focus on the servers. Like REPAY hires a lot of developers. We got a lot of developers on our payroll. We are a huge development shop geared specifically towards making and automating payments and making it easier to get paid.
You guys are a public company, right?
We are, yes. We're
like
big.
Like how are you allowed to say like ballpark number of employees, like how big that is?
We're over 500 employees now at this point.
Wow.
We're acquiring payment companies left and right. So the company has definitely tripled since I've been on board in the last few years. So
wow.
I did start as a independent contractor, and then once I was came on board, yeah, we acquired a lot of payment companies. So we're now probably shy of 600 at this point. I don't know what the number is at this point, but I know it's over 500. And we just acquired Payex. Billingtree was a major acquisition not too long ago. That pretty much doubled our employees overnight. That acquisition in of itself.
Yeah. So there's the whole like payment engine side, right? And for me, my simple brain, I just look at, I think this black box. I really don't care how it works. I just know I need to get money from point A to point B. I either need to get money to another company or from another company. I would imagine most of the development resource is in that black box to make that happen.
That's what we do. I mean, we have countless software engineers that facilitate that black box, so that you need not be concerned about the logistics of getting paid or paying your vendors. I like to always say that I brag that I get to spend my time full time with the most rewarding aspect of any business out there, which is getting paid and facilitating that process, because that's what we're in business for, right? Where we, at the end of the day, we got to get paid. We got to get remuneration for our hard work, and I'm very proud to be a part of that and making that easier for our merchants to facilitate that process.
So this one also might be too sensitive, but I always got to ask. But one thing I've always wondered, how it functions roadmap wise, without talking about specifics on a roadmap. You could look at payments as just, it's really simple. It's move money A to B, you're done. I mean, what possibly could you have that you still need to work on? You should be just lounging on the beach now that you got that AP side done last year. My question is, like, how does the development process get driven when you have multiple applications? Since you're focused on Acumatica, is it more about a central roadmap that then is copied out to all the applications, or do you have some leeway on the Acumatica side to maybe do some things that are particular to Acumatica, since every ERP system does have little different ways of doing things? Like, is it kind of a two-way where you have that sort of centralized roadmap that just gets blasted out to the ERP products, or is it more the individual ERP products discover things that are unique to them and they maybe collaborate on all doing the same thing in some instances? Or is it both ways? Like, how does that process work, if that makes sense?
So we generally try to make our services ERP agnostic. So all of the APIs and then the libraries that we maintain to engage those APIs, we purposely make those ERP agnostic for the intention of reusing those components on various different ERP systems. So at the end of the day, like, I mean, it is more or less I don't want to say it's a simple process. Like, conceptually, you could think of it as a simple process, but there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes as to make all of that stuff work. And in order to make less work for engaging each individual ERP system, we have these agnostic libraries that we can consume the services regardless of what ERP you're using.
So even though you're focused on Acumatica, you're constantly thinking through the lens of multiple ERP products.
That's correct.
So you can scale it better. I mean, that's how you'd be able to pick up new ERP products easier by focusing on making it more agnostic.
Yeah. So my focus is engaging those libraries. Other colleagues on my team, they focus on making those services agnostic as to be able to be consumed by multiple ERP systems.
So they make the black box, you use the black box for the most part.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So in using that black box in the Acumatica world, let's shift gears there to, we titled this Acumatica Developer of the Year. What's involved with that? And how did that come about?
Yeah, that was a huge surprise getting that. But so I mean, it all started. In order to be the Developer of the Year, you have to be within the Acumatica Developer MVP Program. And when I learned of it, I was like, I have to absolutely be in that program. Like, I didn't at the time, like, I didn't think that I had enough prerequisite knowledge to really compete with all of the other MVPs that are in there. So I just wanted to figure out, there's got to be a way where I could just hang out with these guys, and if I'm just there, I'll just absorb whatever knowledge and information that's in there. So I reached out to Mark Frank's 2020, the summit there, January of 2020, and the next couple months I was an MVP there. Mark really liked my performance at the hackathon. We didn't win, but we had a pretty good idea, and it came together pretty good, and we presented it well. It didn't place or anything like that, but it's like, yeah, well, let's get you on board the MVP program.
That was the annual hackathon that happens at Summit, or was it like a special one-off? Okay.
That was the annual hackathon there. So that was my introduction to Mark Franks there. I explained my ERP experience, and that I now have 19 years. I think at the time it was like 17 years, and we just talked about that. He was impressed and was like, "Yeah, come on board. You'll do just fine there."
And I think it's important, for those who don't know the developer MVP program, the regular like Acumatica MVP list is like, you just nominate someone and they become an Acumatica MVP, which I always think is hilarious, because when you look at MVP in sports, MVP means one person, but the Acumatica MVP list is like this gigantic list of random people. Mm-hmm. But the developer MVP program has more teeth to it, right? I mean, there's some actual, you don't just like get the award. There's some stuff you actually have to do, right?
There's a quota. You have to be engaged with the program. You're encouraged to make meetings and attend meetings. It's okay if you miss here and there, but ultimately you meet, you collaborate with or discuss with other developers what's going on, what you're stuck on. Mark is always updating us as to like what the roadmap is for Acumatica and stuff. There's blog articles that you have to do. It's mandatory.
Can I ask you more on the meetings real quick? So is it like monthly, quarterly? What in general, what's the cadence?
They're bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks, we get together for
a lot.
Yeah, that it is a lot. And
I see on the list, like I just pulled up the blog post, which I'll put a link to it on this episode. I see under 2022 developer MVPs, I count 21 people. Does that mean all 21 are on those biweekly calls?
It's rare that we get all participation, but as we try to encourage as many people to participate in it as we can. You get busy. Sometimes you can't make it. You're on PTO or other things, so like you just can't make it for various different reasons, but you do your best.
But mainly I was wondering, it is one group. It's not like there's subgroups, where you have like your own group of 5. It is just one group. You all get on a bi-weekly call, whoever can make it that week. Okay.
Yep. And like I said, you just do your best to attend as many as you can. Generally, it's when you have low participation that you get kind of put on the Mark likes to use these frowny faces on there. That's the one where you're at risk. That hey, you better participate a little bit more, whatnot.
There's some real teeth to it. Yeah, this is not just like the regular MVP.
Yeah, it's work. I mean, it's work beyond your day job, and it sometimes feels like it's a completely different job. Like at the end of the day, and it is a lot of work but it pays off.
You were going to say blog posts. So sorry, you were next going to talk about blog posts. There's a requirement on that as well.
So there is a requirement on that you have to do a minimum of 2 of those per year, or more.
That's not too bad. Okay,
it's not too bad. And yeah, you have pretty much free reign to blog, or you also have the option to vlog and do a video, like a episode of something that you want to teach others. So the general idea is like you want to help others understand the Acumatica framework a little bit better. There might be some dynamics that are not well documented that you want to.
Yeah, I'd say there's probably more than some. Secret,
well,
like secret hidden tricks in a video game, right?
That's exactly it. Like this is where like, oh well, we just and I like to like encourage the MVPs that they don't know what to write or whatnot. It's like find something that you recently got stuck on. The things that you specifically are stuck on and vlog about that. So I mean that's a big part of what the MVP program is about, is helping others be successful with the Acumatica product. And I think that's at the heart of what that MVP program is. And if you're stuck on something, you now have an opportunity to meet your quota, to vlog about it or blog about it, and potentially help somebody else at the end of the day. And it's really rewarding getting feedback from people that read your blogs or vlogs and getting that sense that you helped somebody else. Like that's cool worth every bit of time that you put into doing that. Just knowing that you've helped somebody out there be more successful with the Acumatica product. So there also
and on the blog point, I see the 21 people. If you're doing 2 each a year, that's 42. I mean, there's almost one a week right there. That, and I think it even goes on the official Acumatica blog. It used to be on like a separate site, I think, right? But now it's those blog articles go on the regular Acumatica blog.
Yeah, so they have a new website that's driving community traffic into it. So one of the other quotas that you're required to do, and I think this is actually the hardest piece of being an MVP, is participating in forums such as StackOverflow, as well as the community. So there's a lot of competition out there regarding all of the MVPs. To like the easy questions, they get answered very quickly. So like you got to be quick if you're going to get on those. And like very often the ones that are left unanswered are the ones that are a little more challenging to answer, and you gotta dig in and do that. And like,
and when Mark's measuring the stats, he can't really tell which ones were easy or not, right? It all comes down to number answered. Yeah,
it's
so you got to jump on
numbers. Yeah. So that's the most challenging aspect of the MVP program that I've found is pulling together those and participating with community forums like that. So again, it's really boils down to the heart of what the MVP program is, and it is to help others become successful on the Acumatica platform. And part of that is answering questions where people are stuck. And that's another rewarding thing. Like at the end of the day, when you've helped somebody get through a problem, it's a very rewarding experience, and I very much enjoy that.
So 21 people on the 2022 developer MVPs. When you talk about developer of the year, is that just one person who gets picked off that list?
That's just one person that gets picked off of that list. And what really put me in the running for that was my participation in a community project called Acumatica Surveys. So this came into fruition shortly after the pandemic started. There was a couple customers out there that needed to respond to CDC guidelines in terms of surveying their employees for symptoms and whatnot. And Acumatica didn't have anything in there that facilitated that. And so Mark Franks pulled together a handful of us MVPs. It was Yuri Zaletsky, myself, Harsha was involved. Diren Chegar from Acumatica was heavily involved with that. Chris Hardgrove, and it was like a hackathon. We pulled together something within a matter of like a couple weeks. We pulled together phase one of the product, and that interfaced through the mobile application. So the user had to be a authenticated user of the Acumatica system to actually engage the surveys.
I want to
So
put a link on this episode. Actually, episode 15. Oh, that's almost back to the beginning of this podcast. May 5th, 2020. I talked with Derek Elledge about that. So I think he was on the customer end of that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I remember we did a session at the July 2021 session. He came up and gave us a big hug after that. Like
he really
was
appreciated that.
He
I remember
really
that from that
appreciated.
episode.
Yeah. So he was one of the primary people that reached out in terms of this inquiry, and it was all a voluntary project. I mean, everything was. I was in the New York City area at the time, the Jersey side of New York City, and everything was closing down, and it was an absolutely hot mess there. So I had nothing better to do. So hey, why not participate and just put as much as I can into this? So we got into different phases of it, and one of the things that we really wanted to try to get through was eliminate that need to have an authenticated user to get in and answer these surveys. We wanted something more along the lines of the SurveyMonkey type product, facilitated through Acumatica. And I kind of took reign of architecting the idea of using webhooks to relay simple HTML messages to engage the user through webhooks, because you don't have to authenticate when engaging a webhook. So you just need a link, and Acumatica is just going to feed out the HTML at the end of the process. So we were in a juggling match of like whether or not we were going to go the route of webhooks or the route of using customer portal. With customer portal, it's a little bit of a beast to work with. There's definitely complications that you need to be aware of.
It's just not that user friendly on the front end. I mean, it's not like the normal website experience someone's expecting in a more customer friendly portal, you know?
Yeah. So we wanted to, and then there's the added complexity of like, you also need to commission the customer portal as well, if you're going to go through that. But you had this whole aspect of like the desire of not having an authenticated user being able to answer a survey. You do have a dedicated target as to who's going to answer the survey. Very often you may know who's answering the survey, but you want to bypass that authentication piece of it. So we found a way of doing that relative to webhooks that was secure. And it was pretty much that idea that put me in the running for Developer of the Year. And I got it. I had no idea that I was going to get it. It was such a huge surprise. Mark always says that I'm a pretty humble person, and it's like I know that there's so much talent out there that's that I want to aspire to get to there. Like I feel that I have a lot to learn still before I qualify for that, but I did. I qualified for it, and it's probably the proudest achievement I've had in my entire career.
It was Acumatica Developer of the Year 2021.
Yes.
At the summit, is that when they gave you that award? Let's see, July 2021.
Yep, that's when I received it. So I was on cloud nine for quite a while after that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
I'm curious on that project. So like, you participate in this random project in a sense that doesn't really have to do with your day job. Was there anything from that project that kind of fed back into what you're doing at REPAY? Like, what
absolutely.
Yeah, what kind of benefit do you see?
It's doing stuff like the hackathons, or participating in these community projects, or looking at and utilizing an open source dynamic of Acumatica. Those are the things that really improve your skill level with anything. Like you have your day-to-day job. I mean, that's all within the provincial realm of basic financials. The most we get into is like sales order and stuff like that. With surveys, I was able to experience other dynamics of the Acumatica system that I wouldn't normally be able to do within the scope of what we do in terms of payments. So it's a huge learning experience participating in something like that. And I was honored to even be selected for it because I had an opportunity to work with some of the top brass Acumatica developers, and just being close to them and working with them to solve problems and discuss strategy and this and that. It really improves your developer, your skill as a developer.
Quick time check. Can you go another 5-10 minutes? Do you have another meeting?
Sure. Yeah.
So like specific, without saying a specific roadmap thing, was there anything from that gave you, not like developer code wise, but to your point that you mentioned about getting more experience with the breadth of the Acumatica application, did it trigger any ideas roadmap wise for you there at REPAY?
Yeah, absolutely. The utilization of webhooks, it's an extremely powerful feature. And our first hackathon that I did that really got me into the MVP program in the first place, it utilized webhooks to essentially send, like we did this toggle integration. That's online application that has a pretty extensive API that allows you to track time and how much time you're putting towards tasks. So we had an integration to the project module with Toggle, and we utilized webhooks to essentially allow for like quick and easy links to like switch tasks and whatnot. So that gave me a sense
webhook
of
is basically like a trigger, right? When something happens in Acumatica, it triggers something outside or vice versa. Is that right?
So it's really a counterintuitive type thing. Like that's generally the colloquial thing that you would think of relative to webhooks, is you're triggering something, but we're kind of using a different approach with webhooks, where we're actually serving information, because every web call is a request and a response. So like you can feedback HTML, and you have some rudimentary interface to do some pretty simple things outside of and do that within the context of not requiring actual authentication to the system. So it's really kind of the reverse intention of what webhooks is supposed to be. Webhooks is supposed to be like, there's no user interface. It's just reading a stream of information somewhere. But we just kind of found an intuitive way to kind of reverse that out, so that we can have a rudimentary interface for answering questions and whatnot, and just hitting a button in terms of the use case for our hackathon entry.
Do you know, this is something I've always wondered. Do you know if the business events engine utilizes the same, and I'm just going to keep using the word engine as webhooks under the hood, or are they two completely separate things?
It's two completely different things, and you don't have the granular control that you have with webhooks.
Interesting.
In terms of business events.
Yeah, business events, something I have wanted to learn more about how it works under the hood. Like, I think there might be a like message queue service, like a Windows service that's running, but I've never fully understood it. Specifically, when you're troubleshooting a business event that didn't fire, I don't really know where to go, to get under the hood to figure that out.
That's something that we were entertaining as well in terms of the survey project, because we wanted to fire off business events, like say at the completion stage or the opening stage of like a case or something like that, to send out a survey regarding like, well, what was your experience relative to the case? So we do kind of have something rigged up where we're using a generic, import scenario, I should say, that's triggering some action in there. So we got something rigged up in there, but we did want to explore being able to override some sort of implement some sort of interface base and whatnot to create a completely custom business event. That's not super easy to do, from what we've gathered with that. Since then, one of the things that I want to explore that is similar to firing off business events is doing workflow triggers that will trigger some sort of action on your screen when the record is in some specific state. I think you're going to have an easier time using the workflow tools to actually facilitate something like that, as opposed to overriding or trying to override something business event wise.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have more control in the workflow area. What I don't like about the workflow is I have to create a customization project. I have to publish it off hours. What I like about the business event, it's more like a scripting tool, right? That's more my way of quote programming. But there's pros and cons to both. But yeah, business events speak to me more because I can just go create one and watch it work without doing any code or waiting for an opportunity to publish that customization project.
Yeah. So yeah, I do have follow-up where I want to get more involved and see what I can do with workflows, because there are some use cases that would benefit from that in at REPAY.
Well, that's cool. I know I kind of have a random hodgepodge of curious questions, but anything else you'd like to bring up? Just
yeah.
to
So
talk about?
Regarding the Developer of the Year, so we know that Stéphane Bélanger got 22, and he pretty much got it because he more or less picked up the ball in terms of the surveys project. So he got the recognition via the same outlet that I got it. So
what do you think is the vehicle for 2023 Developer of the Year? Is it still that surveys project?
I'll bet you it's going to be surveys project. I would not be surprised if it's a member of the surveys project, but it does appear that participation in a community project such as this and will put you in the running. And it was certainly like having another job at the end of the day. It's the only time I was able to actually get and participate in it was in the weekends and the evenings, as to not interfere with the day job. So it was a lot of hard work pulling that through.
Well, congrats on that. It definitely sounds cool. Developer of the Year.
Yeah. I'm quite proud of it. It has definitely exploded my ego a little bit. I don't like having a big ego. I really don't. And it's definitely inflated my head somewhat. So I'm glad that Stéphane has that now. So like I can deflate my head a little bit now that he's now the reigning Developer of the Year.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on, describing your journey, talking Acumatica, going on some technical tangents there and helping me understand the REPAY product a little bit more.
Yeah,
the conversation.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed talking with you.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of AUGforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening and take care.